Thank you, Chair. We are live on YouTube, so I will pass the meeting back to you to start. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, good morning. Thank you. Good morning and welcome to East Devon District Council's Virtual Licensing and Enforcement Subcommittee on the 11th of August 2021. I'm your Chair, Councillor Joe Wibley. I'd also like to welcome anyone watching the meeting via the live streaming. All participants here today are taking part remotely, and as well as being live streamed, the meeting is being recorded, so please bear this in mind throughout, and may I remind you to be careful with your language. May I also remind council members that the Code of Conduct applies throughout this meeting. We also reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant who's disrupting the meeting by whatever means. As this licensing and enforcement subcommittee meeting is dependent on the internet connection and a power supply, in the event of a break in the internet connection or power cut, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. After 15 minutes, if we're not able to reconnect, we will consider the meeting adjourned and reconvene at a later date. Please check the committee page on our website for details. Now would be a good time as well for me to explain I'm not at home, so I am juggling technology a little bit. Please bear with me if I appear a little slow. All councillors have been sent the agenda for today's meeting, and any members of the public who want to view the agenda can do so by visiting our website at www.eastdevon.gov.uk. It's in the interests of all parties present that the virtual meeting runs in an orderly manner, so please bear the following points in mind throughout. Please make sure all phones are turned off or are on silent, and make sure all microphones are muted when you're not speaking to avoid any background noise levels. The meeting is being streamed live on YouTube, but please do not have the YouTube streaming on at the same time, as you will not be able to hear or be heard. Please keep points short and do not repeat points that have already been made, and do not interrupt other speakers. As the chair of the meeting, I will advise when it is the turn of each of the participants to speak, and if needed, we'll have a comfort break at approximately 11 AM. For the purposes of the meeting, of confirming that the meeting is quora, we'll now do a roll call of members present. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bloxham.
Good morning, present.
Thank you. Councillor Dent.
Present.
Thank you. And Councillor Wibley.
I'm definitely present.
Thank you, Chair. Back to you.
Thank you. Okay, so agenda item 1, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 7th of July 2021, which is on pages 3 to 7 of the documents. So councillors, if anyone has a comment on the last set of meetings held on the 7th of July, could you please raise your comment by raising your electronic hand? And if there are no electronic hands, I'll take this as an indication that you agree the minutes of the previous meeting. I see no hands. Okay, so those minutes are agreed. Agenda item 2, apologies, we have none, I believe, because we're all here. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest, which will be taken later on. Okay, so agenda item 4, matters of urgency, and there are none. I assume that there's none since the agenda was written?
No, there aren't.
No. Okay. Agenda item 5, confidential or exempt items, and again, there are none. Okay, so the main business of the day, agenda item 6, which is an application for a time-limited premises license for Hawkfest. I'd like to welcome all participants regarding this to the meeting. Okay, I will now read out the information regarding this application. So the type of application, this is a hearing into an application for a time-limited premises license for Hawkfest at Hills Farm, Whitford Road, Kilmington, EX13 7NS. The members of the subcommittee here today are Councillor Joe Wibley, that's me. I'm the chair, Councillor Kim Bloxham, and Councillor Alan Dent. Okay, so can I ask if any member has a personal or prejudicial interest? Could you indicate now by raising your electronic hand? Okay, Councillors Dent and Bloxham do not, and neither do I. So I'd now like to identify who is present, who's already given notice to the council in writing that they wish to address the subcommittee and their representatives. So the applicant is here, and the applicant and their representative are here. Is that so?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
Okay. And neither of you have any further witnesses that you wish to call?
For the record, sorry, this is the legal advisor, Giles Salter speaking. For the record, can I just ask the applicant and their representative just to state their name for the minutes, please?
Okay.
They're both on mute at the moment, Chair. Mr. Lickley and Ms. Tate, if you'd like to unmute, please.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Thank you.
My name is Chris Tate and I'm part of the Hope Fest event management team.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Lilly, can you just state your name and position?
I think Steve's on mute.
Mr. Litley, could you? There we go.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, Stephen Litley, the applicant. Sorry.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And neither of you wish to call anybody else at all in your representation? Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you. Okay. So the licensing authority has received representations from the following responsible bodies: East Devon District Council's Environmental Health Service. The event management plan has been considered, and no representation has been received, and no officer is attending the hearing from Environmental Health. A number of local residents and or businesses have given notice that they wish to attend this hearing. Giles, do we need everybody? Do we need Councillor Ball to state his name in a similar manner?
He could state his name for the minutes and actually who he's representing. That would be
that would be great. Okay, Councillor Ball, could you just do that, please? Thank you. Just for the minutes.
Yes. Good morning. Peter Ball representing. I'll try to remember who they all are. Louise and Richard Quincy, and John and Jean Thorne, and Simon Buse and his wife. Can't remember her name.
Samantha.
Samantha, sorry.
Yeah, very good, very good. 5 out of 6. Okay, thank you. Okay, subcommittee members have read the documents submitted by the parties in advance of this hearing, and any document that anyone has brought with them today may only be submitted if all the other parties to the hearing agree, as required by the hearings regulations. Anyone wishing to introduce further documentary evidence should make that request immediately before they begin to address the subcommittee. The maximum time for any party to address us, including their witnesses, will be 10 minutes. Excuse me. When addressing us, you should not raise any new issue not covered in the representations you've already logged with council, and nor should you raise issues which are not relevant to the promotion of the licensing objectives at issue in this hearing, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, and the prevention of public nuisance. There are no representatives from any of the responsible bodies. The written representations we have received from interested parties appear to relate principally to 3 of the 4 licensing objectives. First, in relation to the prevention of crime and disorder, the potential of increased criminal activity by the event, attracted by the event, sorry. Regarding public safety, increased vehicle movements and access through the village and along the A35. And regarding the prevention of public nuisance, noise nuisance in particular bass noise after 2300 hours on 3 consecutive nights, giving residents no respite over a bank holiday weekend in the close proximity to the event. and there appears to be no representations regarding the prevention of children from harm. Okay, so where I think it helpful, I may choose to lead the discussion, as that may be the most effective way of identifying key concerns and possible solutions. I wish to avoid formal cross-examination, and I will allow questions at appropriate points. The subcommittee's legal advisor, Mr. Salter, will now briefly go through the procedure for today's hearing.
Thank you,
Charles.
Chair. So the hearing takes place in three particular sections. The first section being the licensing officer, Mr. Stephen Saunders, who's the licensing manager for East Devon District Council. He will set out the application as received by the licensing authority. Once he's done that, there may be some questions from members, followed by questions from the applicant, and then questions from the interested parties in turn. Once that's completed, we move on to the second phase, which is the applicant's case. So Mr. Littley and Ms. Chris Tate will make their application to the committee. Once they've concluded that, there may be some questions from the members and then questions from the interested parties. That's the second bit over and done with. Then the third bit is the interested parties, which will be Councillor Peter Ball, setting out his position regarding the application. And then once he's set that out, there may be some questions from the members and questions from the applicant. That's the third section. And then the members then may wish to sort of bring everyone into some form of discussion. Once the members are happy that they've heard everything they want so that they can make their decision, the committee will retire for their decision. And we will make the written decision notice available within 5 working days of the end of the meeting. I think that's all I need to say for the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Giles. Okay, we'll now move to the licensing officer. Mr. Saunders will now present a summary of the report and update on any changes to the report as published. Steve.
Yeah, good morning, Chair, and good morning, everyone. As outlined, today's subcommittee is asked to consider the application submitted by Mr. Steve Littley for the grant of a new and time-limited premises licence at the premises outlined being Hills Farm, Whitford Road, Kilmington. The purpose is to provide licensable activities at an event that is known as Hawkfest for up to 1,000 people, and the period of the licence sought is from Thursday the 26th of this month to Monday the 30th of August this year. The following licensable activities have been applied for and proposed, being the supply of alcohol on the premises. That's between earliest hours of 10 a.m. and through to 2 a.m. daily, except for the Thursday being the first day, which would be from noon until midnight of that day. The playing of live and recorded music between the hours of 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. and together with late night refreshments that start under the legislation from 11 p.m. and go through to 2 a.m. As stated, the supply of alcohol is only sought on the premises, and the premises themselves are outlined and circled in red on the licensed plan that was submitted with the application, which you can view at Appendix B. There is an existing premises license on the site at the Cranberries Function Suite with a permanent indefinite premises license, and that provides licensable activities with slightly different timings, with late night refreshments indoors, and with that license restricted to a limit of 300 people who can attend the function suite. The application itself for this premises license is set out in Appendix A, and for ease and for reference, the conditions that have been offered by the applicants are within the operating schedule set out in Appendix C. As you've heard, there have been a series of representations that have been outlined, and the representation and party from Kilmington Parish Council, Kilmington Parish Council represents those local residents today. By way of an attempt at informal mediation, a letter was prepared and submitted by the applicants, which was sent out to all who had made a representation, and that can be viewed today at Appendix H. None of those representations have been withdrawn and leaving all to be considered this morning by the subcommittee. When responding to the notice of hearing, as stated, the objectors have agreed that their points may be provided by Councillor Ball today, and these are set out in Appendix G and also additional documents under G1 and G2. The applicants have responded, and as you're aware, are represented today by Mr. Litley and Chris Tate, and all further details are contained within the body of the report and the appendices, and there have been no further updates since the publication. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Steve. Do we have any questions from members for Mr. Saunders at all? Councillor Bloxham.
Yeah, just one. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Steve. You mentioned that the premises already has a licence, and I wondered, are we aware of any existing complaints or any previous complaints for this venue?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bloxham. There's nothing reported on our system or anything that I could bring forward to highlight or evidence this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bloxham. Do either of the applicants have any questions for the licensing officer at all?
I don't think so.
No. Okay, that's cool. Do any of the interested parties, Councillor Ball, do you have anything you'd like to?
No, thank you. No.
No. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we will now hear from the applicants. You have 10 minutes to speak regarding the application. And you'll be given a 30-second warning. So either, I don't know which order you want to do it in, Ms. Tate or Mr. Litley, whichever of you would like to go first.
Chris, do you want to outline what you normally do?
Basically, it's we put on Hawkfest every year for many years. It's a small fan club event. We apply for a license up to 1,000 simply because we could get over 500, and we want to do it properly. We very rarely get anything near 1,000, but to be safe, it's better to do it that way than to do it on a 10 license and have to risk going over. All tickets are sold in advance, so we have the name and address of everybody on site. It's all pretty much fan club. So nobody can walk up and buy a ticket on the door. They come from all over the country. Usually they come from all over Europe as well, but unfortunately this year a lot of our overseas people can't make it. Once they come on the site, they pretty much stay on the site. The demographic, I mean, as you know, Hawkwind have been going for 52 years, and they're pretty much the same fans. We kind of know them all. The demographic is well over 50, apart from people who bring their children. And we do have people coming who came as children years ago, and now they're bringing their own children. But yeah, that's the demographic. We have had no record whatsoever of any crime. We've got a 0 crime record for all the Hawkfests that we have put on. It's mainly families. It's not, and also the music, I must point out, is world music. It's a lot more, there's folk, there's jazz and there's blues. There's a very small percentage of the bands are actually rock bands. Just mainly, I suppose, Hawkwind, which is on the Saturday night. We don't go until midnight anyway, but we apply to midnight because we kind of schedule the bands to stop at 11. But what you don't want is somebody getting pulled off stage just in the middle of their last number because it's 11:05. So we tend to, that's what we tend to sort of allow a little bit of leeway on either side of things, which is the reason for the license application having later hours. same as indoors, when we finish at 12, mainly the acts that are indoors, which I believe is soundproofed, or there's a girl with an acoustic guitar, we've got a folk band, we've got Soft Machine, who are these this wonderful blues band in their 80s, but nothing is particularly loud or bass drummy or anything like that. The reason we have to apply for live music after 11 is because otherwise you can only have recorded music. So you could actually have a disco with drum and bass, and that would be fine. But if you have somebody playing an acoustic guitar, that wouldn't fall within the regulations. So we cover ourselves by doing that. What more can I add? We always will go by the licensing regulations and the sound. I mean, we test the sound all the time. All of our sound engineers are very aware of it. We've got no intention of annoying anybody or going outside of our sound management plan and outside of the national sound levels, which are stated. We've got no intention really of going to say doing anything to the event. Is what it is. I would think most people go to bed after the main act anyway, just given their age and the fact that they're families. We keep it quiet on site because people do have young families, so it wouldn't be fair to them to have a noisy campsite or anything like that. We have given directions with the tickets, with a map, telling people not to follow sat-navs, not to drive through the village, but to solely come on the A35, turn up Whitford Road for half a mile, and then straight onto the site. We will have lots of stewards working on the reason we're opening on Thursday. There isn't actually any festival on Thursday, but it's just to give people time who are traveling long distance over a couple of days to come in, rather than opening at a certain time when you will get a traffic jam then, because everybody be. So we stagger it just to avoid any traffic congestion. We will take people straight off the off Whitford Road into a holding area, which is about 3-acre car park, and then we will process them with wristbands and things. So none of the queuing or processing will spill out onto the public highway. We'll get them straight in and straight onto the site. We will, I said, we will do everything we can and to make sure that nobody goes anywhere, deviates anywhere apart from the route in. We will have the system, they won't get in any other way. We have also, as we always do, put out with our regulations and things to be respectful of all times of the village. And if you do leave the site, to leave it quietly. When you enter the site, leave it quietly. Take your litter and put your litter in the bins on the site. Do not, we've pointed out that Kilmington is an area, it's a quiet village, an area of national outstanding beauty, and we want to keep it that way. And we have done festivals in similar positions, and we haven't had any complaints. I think once everybody's in there, pretty much the village won't really be aware of much extra going on. Anything else I can add? Anybody would like to ask me?
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. We'll hear from Mr. Litley, and then we'll have some questions. I would imagine. Thank you for that, Mr. Litley.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everybody.
Hi.
I think Chris has pretty much summed it up pretty well. I mean, the organisation behind this, and obviously what Hawkwind have done over the last 50 years is prominent there. No, this isn't their first gig they've organised. It's obviously they've done many thousands of gigs throughout the world, and many local. I think they've done over 20 gigs within the Devon area, I believe. It's professionally run. Like Cranberries itself, as she said before, people will not be kept on the roads; they'll be brought straight in. We've got a very large track leading up to the camping area, so we shouldn't disrupt anybody on the road systems. With alcohol, there's no bottles or anything being allowed. No one's allowed to bring their own alcohol into the actual area, so it'll only be sold by us via plastics within the site. There's SIA security guards there that obviously be checking people that no one comes in and out with alcohol. We can't stop them obviously drinking it in their own tents, but there's no open fires, there's no noise, no music, etc. So the campsite should be kept quite well and truly to where it needs to be. We obviously will be operating a Challenge 21 to anybody that's underage, but as Chris has already pointed out, the age of most of these people is I don't want to say quite ancient, but obviously my age and above, so over 50s. And I say the people that are coming with children, they're not going to be there past 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Sensible parents will be taking their children back, and the rest of the people that are there will be enjoying the music that will be inside my function room, which we've conducted many functions and weddings and corporate events over the years. The room is soundproofed, and I've followed all the guidelines that EHO have set out for us. It's got double sets of doors going in and out, and obviously any music that's being played in there from 11 o'clock will be very low key. As Chris pointed out, it's not pre-recorded. It's not this drum and bass, low bass lines, etc. So yeah. In all, it is a family-orientated event. We've got magicians, we've got all sorts of things happening. It's not just music. There's questions and answers with Matthew Wright. We've got Paul Zenham from TV as well coming down to do a magic show on a Sunday afternoon. So there isn't going to be a constant thud of noise. And where we've situated the big top is in my menage of my arena, which is surrounded with trees around it and a building to the left-hand side. So again, you won't even be able to see it from the road or anyone approaching down the A35. So when we all look what's going on over there, it'll be pretty much camouflaged. And obviously any excess sound and stuff will be sort of shielded by the trees and stuff as well. And as Chris said, the way it'll be operated, we will keep within any music guidelines. I've always checked in on every function that I've ever had that the sound is at the right levels myself as well.
30 seconds remaining.
Okay. So yeah, to sum it up, hopefully it'll be a very well run event.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any questions from members of the subcommittee? Councillor Dent.
Thank you, Chair. My confusion is the difference between the function room and the marquee. What's happening and where?
Right.
It rather appeared that the band would be in the marquee, but clearly you're saying, from what I hear, that's not the case. Could you just explain to me how the setup will work?
Should I explain?
Yep, you explain that one, Chris.
Okay. We have the main stage it's a big top. So that's where the main stage is, where we have the music up until sort of 11, half 11 at the most, I would say. And then, that's when the majority of the people, and the marquee is licensed up to 1,000 people. So you can fit everybody in the site at that stage. Not that everybody will always go to the same place, but that is the big area. After that, when most people have gone to bed, we will go to the smaller inside function room, which I believe holds 300 people. And that's where the late night music will continue in there. During the daytime, we have got, on the second stage, we've got children's activities, we've got open mic, we've got the magic show, we've got things going on on both of the stages all day, sort of staggered. So when we do a changeover on the main stage, people can go and have a look at something else.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Dent? Brilliant.
Yeah, does it? Just gives a bit of clarity there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bloxham.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Dent, because I needed that clarity as well in answer to that question. So that was useful. Can I ask how many tickets have been sold to date? I've got a couple of questions. Do you want to answer them as how many tickets have been sold so far?
I believe it's around about 530. Could be more. We sold a few in the last few days, so it's still well under 600. I don't believe we've hit the magic 550 yet. We need to sell 675 to break even.
Thank you. Are the tickets all weekend tickets, or can people come and go by the day and by day tickets?
No, there's no day tickets, and there's no tickets on the gate at all. You can only come if you book in advance, and we don't sell through ticket agencies. We only sell through the Hawkwind website. So you have to be really a fan of Hawkwind. And yeah, we sell only 3 days. There's nothing on the door at all.
Thank you. And I notice as well that you've offered to send a letter to all the nearby residents with a telephone number for any issues, noise or anything on the night.
Yeah.
Has that letter gone, or are you obviously holding on, and should you receive the licence before you send it?
Yeah, well, it's gone. I believe it's gone to the parish council and all the people who objected. We will make sure, because we had to do, I think, 2 weeks before. We said we don't want to do it miles in advance. 2 weeks before, we will make sure it goes to the nearest sensitive properties. I think we've identified six sensitive properties, but I believe the town council have got it, so it's a freely available document. I mean, they can put it on their website. If we've got no objection to it being totally open to anybody in Kilmington.
Thank you. Just answered my next question as well then. So thank you. That's it for the moment. I don't know if Councillor Dent's got any more.
I think I have a couple of questions as well. In terms of stewarding, how many stewards and security guards will you have on site?
On site, we have, what is it? I think the purple guide, the regulations, is 1 SIA security to every 100, but we're going over that. We will have 8 on site at any one time. We will have 10 altogether. So we will have the SIAs as if we were doing 1,000, even though we won't get anywhere near that now. Stewards, we're hoping we're probably going to have about 20 on the Thursdays and Fridays. They'll come and work.
Yeah.
You know, on the main days when we're getting people in and out, and then over the weekend, I would have thought there'll be about 10 on duty at any one time, just around the site, helping people, answering questions.
Okay, thank you. And also just in terms of first aid provision, is that all? I imagine you have that all sort of in place.
Yes, we do the same.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Dent, have you got another question?
Yeah, just to enlarge on the first aid bit, 2 things really. How many people are actually qualified first aiders? That's one. Second question, do you have a defibrillator on site? Because with the age group concerned, it might be appropriate.
Steve?
We don't have a defibrillator on site. The nearest one is at the village hall, which is just over 0.7 of a mile away, so directly back down the Whitford Road. We did try to get a defibrillator, but we haven't been successful as yet. So there is one very, very local. So within a couple of minutes, we can pick that up. So that's not a problem for that, hopefully.
And qualifications for first aiders?
They will all have, we've got a number of nurses who work in general practice. We have got 7 doctors on site, but getting doctors to actually take responsibility.
You'd never trust a doctor, would you? Never mind.
And we've got people who've, got the work qualification as, first attenders. We will have about, I would say, 4 or 5 of them on duty at all times. And we've got a first aid centre at the office with a number on, and it'll be signposted. So anybody who needs to have first aid will make their way there, and it will be assessed whether they needed to take to the minor injuries unit, whether it's something more serious and we need to call an ambulance, or whether it can be treated with the people that we have there on site.
Just a follow up, how do you plan to make this is a sort of broader question, the site COVID safe? Because it's not gone away yet, and though everybody's ancient and double jabbed like me, yes. How about it? What do you tend to do there?
Well, for the backstage and working person, for all the bands, all of the crews, anybody who's working at all in the backstage area, or I believe with the public, and including the stewards, they all have to be either double jabbed, they have to do a PCR test, or they have to do a fast flow test within 24 hours, and obviously a negative one, of coming to the site. Most of our audience probably are double jabbed anyway, just because of the demographic. Steve has got hand cleansers. The site's big enough for people to actually distance if they choose to. They're not going to be crammed together. So all we can really do is control the people who are working for us. And I believe all Steve's staff are going to be wearing masks.
Yeah, all of our staff will be masked, and then we've got stations for alcoholic cleansing, etc. Wherever bar there is, there'll be the toilets will be provided, and round by the eating areas and stuff, we'll be providing hand sanitizer, etc. And so, as my staff will all be wearing masks anyway to serve people.
Another one, Mayor?
Yeah, go for it, Chair.
I
keep calling everybody else Chair. I'm having delusions.
Well, carry on, that'll do nicely.
Oh, okay, Chair.
I consider it a compliment. What's happening in the way of provision of food? Because you've got a camping site, people will presumably be pretty independent. That's one question. Second question is, if people need to get supplies from outside, what has the village got to offer in terms of shops? That's probably not your, you may not know the answer to that. I'm just curious to know how people are going to live over 4 days.
Right.
Keep themselves going.
We are providing food throughout the weekend as part of the application. So there's a variety of vegan, vegetarian and normal options. So we got at least 8 different types of food that we will be providing on site. Obviously, the village itself does have Miller's Farm Shop, does have a garage at the end of the road, and we're within 1.2 miles of Tesco's. But these people are sort of hardened campers, etc. They will bring supplies with them, I would imagine. And if you're coming away on holiday, you're going to be bringing food with you to see the weekend out. And obviously, with what we're offering as well, we've also got 6,000 bottles of water on their way. So, I mean, at the end of the day, there's going to be water enough for everybody to drink out of bottled water if they need to require that. And obviously, for providing the bands and stuff. So there'll be absolute plenty of food and drink available for everybody. And say, if they do want to walk off and go down to Miller's or something like that, obviously that they can buy locally. But yeah, I mean, Gilmington, as much as it is a village, we are in easy reach of most communities, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Is that it from you, Councillor Dent, at the minute? Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Councillor Bloxham.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of more things I've noted here. We talked about the potential time that the bands would finish. What sort of time are you looking at for the live bands to start?
Let's have a look. Well, on Friday, it'll probably not be till about 4 o'clock, I would think. 4:30 I've got down here at the moment. The reason we apply from 10 in the morning is because we check out the PA, you check the sound levels. So you need to have a license to make any sound at all. But the mornings are pretty much just used for setting up and getting sound levels, sound checks together for the bands playing later. On Saturday, we will, let's have a look, Saturday. It looks like we're starting at about 2 o'clock on Saturday. Sunday, the main day, it's quite a quiet day because we start with question time with Matthew Wright, and that's at about 3 o'clock, where all heads of departments is all like our head of lights, our head of sound, the band members, people associated with the band, they all sit on stage in a kind of question time sort of scenario and take questions from the audience. And, they don't have the questions in advance, they get put on the spot a bit, but we do that. So Sunday afternoon's quite quiet. We've got a magic show, say Paul's in and doing his magic. But yeah, pretty much I would think the main bands start around about, looking at my schedule here so far, we haven't got anything before 3 o'clock at the moment, but obviously we're hoping to get a couple of little you know, maybe some local bands in just to get things going a bit.
That's really useful, thank you. And I think the question times actually are quite interesting. I've done quite a few of those myself, and it's quite interesting to understand what goes on and how you put it all together. And it is more fun when you can ask something that they weren't pre-prepared for. So thank you. Just one other one on the traffic movement. You talk about I understand all the things you've got in place to get into the car park, but once they're in, will the traffic be allowed to move around? Is there any reason to move around other than, or they presumably can leave the site and come back in again, but is there any need for any traffic movement during the weekend within the site? And if so, how are you managing that?
No, there's no traffic movement at all in the site. People who want to use their cars over the weekend to maybe go sightseeing or go to the beach or whatever, or go shopping, then we're providing a car park near the entrance where they can leave their car, and they're the only people who can use their vehicles. Anybody who brings their vehicles properly onto the site, they won't be able to use them again until the end. But people are aware of that, so anybody who wants to use their car have got a separate car park.
Thank you. Can I just, sorry, yeah.
But the only movement that there will be is probably bands arriving and leaving.
Yeah,
from
that's
sites.
true.
So just obviously there aren't, because they're not all staying. Some of the bands are staying, but that which they will.
Yeah,
I get that. Separate entrance anyway for the bands, so we can get them on and off site very quickly.
Yeah, I get that, and it sounds like that's
sorry, go on, Councillor.
Sorry, I said that sounds like that's a tried and tested way that you work from what you've said. But how do you stop people coming out? Presumably you do have some traffic management stewards around, or do you just rely on everybody does do what you say and don't take their cars out of that car park for the weekend?
No, we have security and stewards on at all times. We have never had a problem with it in the past, but if we did have, I'm sure it would be quite quickly dealt with, you know.
Okay, thank you. That answers it. Thank you, Chair. Over to you.
Okay, cheers. Thank you. I was just going to say, it's a bit disappointing to hear that bands aren't helicoptered to gigs these days. I don't know. Okay. Do we have? I guess is that it for members? Yeah. Okay. Do we have any questions from the interested party? So that would be Councillor Ball. Do you have any questions at this point?
No, I've had some good discussions with both of the applicants about the arrangements and so on, because I think, as your councillors have found, if you just read the basic document that were publicised, it is quite difficult to get to the bottom of it and understand the detail. So we've had several discussions now and several meetings, which has been very helpful. So no questions now.
Okay. Right then. Okay, so we will now move on to the interested parties case. So that is you, Councillor Ball. You have 10 minutes to speak regarding the application, and you two will be given a 30-second warning. Okay, Councillor Ball, over to you.
Thank you. As you stated, there's been a number of concerns about this event from village residents. And I think to understand these concerns, I need to put them into some context, particularly if you don't live in a village yourself. Kilmington's a small, quiet village of around 830, and the community is closely packed together on old, narrow roads south of the A35 trunk road. There's never been an event of this potential size in the village. And from the A35, you have to travel through the residential area to get to the site, which is right on the edge of the village. So when some residents saw a one-page public notice requesting a 3-day music event from 10 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the morning, alarm bells rang, and then digging deeper, a 2-page application summary, which is on the licensing site, told us it was a rock festival with a potential of 1,000 adult tickets being available. And so with a lineup of more than 23 bands, all of their roadies and all of the catering and organisers, Kilmington residents started to assume that we could expect some 1,300 people descending to camp on the edge of the village. And with children, this could almost treble the population overnight, was the statement. News travels fast in the village, as I'm sure you can imagine. And for example, a post went up on Kilmington's Facebook suggesting Glastonbury comes to Kilmington. So that was the kind of shock that came across. That's partly to do with, I think, the kind of communications that are put forward by licensing. And then it's quite a complicated procedure to actually dig down and find out more detail. So at this time, the licensing website seemed to be focusing only on the application for alcohol and music. And there seemed to be very little information about the event planning publicly available, and also little explanation of the judgment process, considering the overall environmental impact of such a large event. Hence the concern amongst residents in the village and calls to the parish council saying, well, what are you going to do about it? So since then, we've now spent some time quizzing organisers and licensing staff, and they were all very helpful. And we now understand that environmental health and safety, the police, fire and ambulance services are all involved in the assessment and decision-making process. But initially that wasn't clear to residents looking at the website. Therefore, the parish council has now agreed with residents to leave these groups to judge many of the concerns and issues that they raised, because they would normally be dealt with under the day-to-day management of those groups anyway. And in fact, now that the detailed management plan has been published, which is Appendix D with the hearing documents, many of those questions have been answered and their concerns reassured. So actually it would have been helpful if this document had been made public slightly earlier in the process, and I think we could have nipped some of the stuff in the bud. That's just along the way. So basically the parish council has had discussions with all those residents and many more who didn't make formal representations, and we've agreed that we would only focus on the two significant concerns raised, which is noise and traffic and the impact that these have on public nuisance, safety and the protection of children from harm. So firstly, noise, creating a nuisance. As already stated, the residents are not asking for this event to be cancelled, and the organisers have said that they will comply with the sound regulations. However, the concern of the residents was heightened recently, for example, as the thump thump of the bass from the Yardie Party event, which was held close to Axminster, could clearly be heard throughout the village, and that's some 3/4 of a mile away. This event at Hills Farm is within 200 metres of residential housing. Now, there's also suspicion and confusion was raised as the application states that the live music will be indoors. But in discussion with the organisers, it's in a big top marquee. Now, to the layman, a marquee is not indoors as it provides limited sound deadening, particularly if all the doors are open to provide ventilation to limit COVID-19. But the organisers weren't trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes. We've now learned that actually the definition that you guys use is that a marquee is considered to be indoors. So our conclusion is that basically the process is not that straightforward. So we've really got to rely on your overall judgment and the help of East Devon Council to make sure things fall in line and our residents aren't upset. So what residents do seek from you is a commitment, please, that EDDC, as a condition of the licenses, the published environmental health policy, noise levels and times will be agreed, and they will be enforced as specified in the regulations. Now, the organisers have said that, but residents feel safer if that is clearly made a condition of the licenses you grant. However, we do note that the organisers have requested an out of policy extension to have live music until 2 AM, but this, as they've already said, is within a solid insulated brick building. So providing the noise is at the level stated and you can't be heard outside of the site, we don't have an objection to that either. The second major concern that we have is traffic. We know our village and the way in which the roads are used now, and most have no pavements, they're unlit, and they are used by pedestrians, cyclists, horse riders, etc. And we feel the additional traffic travelling to the festival will increase the danger to road users, and we are therefore requesting some simple actions to improve their safety, which we believe is in everybody's interest. And there are two areas of concern: the A35 and then the residential lanes within the village. Firstly, the A35. It's a known accident black spot, particularly at the junctions into the village. It has a 50-mile-an-hour limit, and at present, the volume of traffic is extremely high, as I'm sure you guys will recognise, because of the staycations. The event is on a bank holiday, so almost certainly the traffic's going to be even greater. Now, we understand Highways England don't entertain temporary speed restrictions, and so we're really asking, are there any measures open to you to temporarily slow traffic down to reduce the danger to the vehicles that are turning in and out of the village, some obviously to the event, and also to pedestrians who have to cross that road? There's no pedestrian crossing to get to the farm shop, which is on the opposite side of the road. The only thing that we could kind of come up with in brainstorming was perhaps these blue temporary police slow signs, which you see if there's an accident or some kind of obstruction or something on the road. We know that there's a huge number of accidents up and down that road. A lot of them aren't reported, some of them are, and we've given you the accident figures there. So anything that would just make, you know, the festival goers and residents safer, we think it's worthwhile mentioning. Secondly, Whitford Road and the other residential lanes in the village. The organisers have kindly agreed to send a map with tickets and put some direction signs direct to festival goers to direct them down the Whitford Road as the sole route off the A35 to the site. Now, if drivers comply with this, that should reduce the nuisance through the village and also the danger to the residential centre of the village. Can these actions please be included as conditions for granting a licence? Again, residents feel, although the offer has been made, that sort of condition on the licence would make it mandatory, and if you like, they feel safer because of that. Whitford Road will therefore now carry all that event traffic. That has a 30-mile-an-hour limit. It's a narrow road. It has the children's recreation ground, the cricket field, 2 churches, a village hall, a cement works located along it, and it's lined with residential housing. It's used by horse riders, and it's a national cycle route, which at this time of the year is used by tourists and so on. So pedestrians are going to use this also as the main route to shops, and there's no pavements again or street lighting.
30 seconds remaining.
Festival goers and their families unfamiliar with the road may also be using it to visit the shops. So are there any measures again that you could implement to improve the safety on this road? For example, temporary speed limit reduction or police slow signs or something similar. Now, I repeat, we're not asking for the event to be cancelled, but residents seek the support of EDDC to help meet your objectives in order to limit nuisance and improve safety to the visitors and residents. So thank you for your assistance. Councillor Joe, we can't hear you.
I was hoping to get through a meeting without doing that. That would be the. I'm so annoyed at myself. Yeah, thank you. I was just saying thank you. Some really interesting points. It's nice to see that an interested party is actually speaking to the applicant, because that doesn't always happen, and that can obviously make these things.
No, they've been very helpful.
Excellent. Can make these things a lot easier. I think in terms of what we as a council were able to do, this hearing is very much focused on the licensing objectives. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to ask Giles Salter, the legal representative, if he can just explain in terms of conditions and things that we are able to put in any licence, what we're able to do and what we're not able to do in terms of this hearing. Are you able to do that for us, Giles?
I'll have a go, Chair.
Thanks.
Obviously there are the 4 licensing objectives which fundamentally you have to consider in order to.
You're very muffled, Giles.
Sorry, there are these 4 licensing objectives which you have to consider that the event is properly managed and is safe to happen. And those 4 licensing objectives usually are fixed to the perimeter of the event. So anything that happens within the perimeter of the event can be conditioned on how that event will be run. I understand the concerns of the local community with the narrow roads, Kilmington Village, lack of footpaths and lack of lighting. But East Devon District Council is focused on the licensing of events and their the licensable activities, which include obviously the sale of alcohol, recorded and live music, etc. We are not, the East Devon District Council is not the Highways Authority. You will see, committee, that the police, who obviously are interested in the obviously road safety, made no representations at all on their concerns about the vehicle movements to and from and around the event over that weekend. The only thing I can suggest is, if you are minded to grant the application, is that the parish council speak directly with the police authority to ask them to actually whether they would consider putting out signage for the weekend. But I think it's very difficult to condition the application for events that actually happen away from and outside of the perimeter of the event itself. Your focus, as I said, is on the 4 licensing objectives. You have no authority to impose speed limits, any vehicle management on the highway. So that's what I advise there. As far as the noise is concerned, obviously you have your licensing policy, which is the framework. There will be some considerations in there as to how you may wish to consider managing the noise at the event. You have the event management plan, which says it will comply with the national guidance, which I believe is up to 65 dB to 11 p.m. at night, and then 45 dB after 11 p.m. at night. And that is stated in the event management plan. The environmental health people are the experts on noise. You have no expertise on noise, so that's something you have to consider if you want to consider any further conditions placed on the license. As I said before, your main focus are on those 4 licensable objectives, and I think that's all I want to say as far as from a legal point of view and your remit as a licensing authority.
Okay, thanks. I think that's really helpful, Giles. Just so although it's not something that we can influence in terms of the license, there are options open to the council, like speaking to the police or highways if they do have further concerns were the license to be granted. Okay.
One thing I should say, sorry,
yeah.
Chair, one thing I probably didn't make clear was that the Highways Authority isn't a statutory consultee under the legislation. The police are, but the Highways Authority isn't.
Okay, so does that, are they able potentially, would they be in a position to be able to help were the license to be granted the Highways Authority, or would it just be the police? Giles, where have you gone, Giles? Okay,
I'm here. Sorry, I'm having problems with the mute.
No
the police, I think your concern will be raised. Your concerns will be best raised with the police first and foremost, and they're the ones obviously put out the police slow signs. I mean, that is something that obviously the event itself could undertake. There seems to have been this sort of dialogue between the parish council and the organisers, and I think that's something that they could discuss outside of the decision that is made by the decision that may be made by you today.
Okay, that's really, really useful, and I hope that does give some reassurance that although we can't do anything, there is still scope for something to be done were the licence to be granted. Do we have any questions from members to the interested party? Oh, we have, okay, Councillor Bloxham.
Sorry, I was actually firstly going to say, I see that Steve Saunders has got his hand up.
Yeah, I just saw that as well.
Yeah,
Steve, do you
come in?
Yeah, do you just want to quickly come in, Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If I might just on a very brief procedural update on that from Giles, the work for any road changes, speed changes or diversion takes a number of months. So it at this stage, as Giles Salter has said, it would be a kind of informal supportive arrangement with the police that we wouldn't be able to do anything that is through the usual channels that can take 3 months with the highways department. I thought I'd just specify that. Thanks.
No, that's really helpful. Thank you, Steve. Councillor Bloxham.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Councillor Ball, because I think by the sound of it, you have had some very good discussions and covered off lots of the concerns that had been raised. And I think that as you've hopefully seen this morning, that in the questions and answers that we've also had, we've delved down a bit deeper to get some understanding of the whole event. And I've really only got one thing for you. There was a question I raised earlier about the letter that had gone out to concerned residents with an emergency number, and I believe the parish council is in receipt of that, and assume you're publishing and are happy to publish that information so that should any residents have concerns over that weekend, should the licence be granted, that they have got an emergency number to call.
Yes, we'll certainly make that public. Obviously waiting to the result of the discussions here to see if there was any other measures that could be put in place to kind of help residents with their concerns and so forth. So that we will send out. There's also an informal, it's nothing to do with the council, an informal Facebook page, as I'd mentioned earlier. So yes, we can publish something on that, and we can put something on the official council website. They're not 100% used by the village, but certainly yes, we can make that point, and word gets around, as I've said, fairly quickly in a small village. Yeah. I think that what you can see from this is that the whole subject is very difficult, tackling it first time round to understand how the license procedure works. And it does tend to focus on, as we mentioned, the alcohol and the music noise and all the other bits that sort of come around the edge of it and can affect, as we've said, traffic, safety in village and outside. It's to try and dig down and find out, well, who can influence those is very difficult. And that's not, you know, a lot of that is down, I think, to the procedures and the communications, and I would suggest that can be improved. We have had a lot of discussions with the applicants, because obviously they're on the edge of the village, so, and they have tried to be very helpful, but inevitably residents kind of would see it as a them and us, and if the council can come in and put their foot down, that makes sure it definitely is going to happen. You know, if you get that sort of message.
Can I just come back, Chair, on one
thing?
Yeah,
go for it, yeah.
Of course. One other course as well, and probably a bit too late now, is that your county councillor, because of course the county councillors are responsible for highways with Devon County Council. So whether you've had any engagement, whether it's too late, whether you can still have a conversation with your county councillor to see if anything can be done to assist in the areas you've mentioned on the road difficulties. But as our officer Steve Saunders has said, it's probably a bit late to do anything like that, but that does give you county councillor and the police. You may be, if you've got a reasonable relationship and some goodwill there, you may get something to assist. But thank you.
No, thank you for that. We did speak to Ian Chubb, Devon County, and he said no, they don't like closing roads, and certainly they've got no impact on the A35 itself. They don't like closing roads in the village, and you do need at least 3 months notice. So, and then, as I say, someone had the idea, well, maybe these little lightweight blue signs the police use might help, just to slow stuff down coming up up through the A35. Okay, thank you.
Cheers, thank you. I mean, you raise an interesting point about the process being sort of complicated as somebody coming into it for the first time. I think you're not the first that said that. It is something I have had some discussions with Giles about just trying to make it as focused on the 4 licensing objectives. So when people first start looking into this, realizing that is all that we're about, and there are other things and other parts to it. So it's interesting that you've that you found that as well. So thank you for that. Let me have a look where we're up to. Does the applicant have it? I guess members, we have no more questions. Councillor Dent, you fine? Yeah, cool. Do the applicants have any questions for Councillor Ball?
I have a reassurance for Peter. I mean, obviously we have had meetings with Peter before, and we've agreed to put some signs up saying no access to Cranberries or the festival in some wording on, I think, 3 roads that we've identified in the village, which aren't close to the A35. They are just so that nobody turns down, because I'm a resident of the village. You know, we want to work with the village. This is not something, you know, we're trying to work against the village. Whatever can be done that we can do, even if you can't write it as legislation, we've already agreed that with Peter. You know, I just want to reassure him here that, you know, we will do what we said we will do. You know, Hawkwind and ourselves certainly don't want to upset anybody. As for speed and traffic coming through the village, it's a straight road coming off the A35. These guys will be looking for us. You know, these aren't the typical young lads blasting down in their cars. These are people that are coming to sort of a mature festival. You know, they're not going to be flying through villages at 60 miles an hour. You know, they're going to turn off the A35 and they're going to be, you know, looking for that sign to see where they're going. So I don't think you're going to find people who are going to be speeding up and down the roads or anything silly or daft like that. You know, these are country lanes, so hopefully Peter can get some reassurance from that, and we will do what we've agreed to do for Peter. So it's not something we're just going to think, oh yeah, we're going to do that and then forget about it tomorrow. I have to live in the village and I have to live with these people. So and in the future, if the things I want to do in the future, I don't want to be upsetting anybody at this stage. So just a reassurance from Peter and the council and the rest of the people of Kilmington that we will do what we said we would do.
Thank you for that.
Cheers, thank you. Ms. Tate, have you got anything? No.
No,
Okay,
just
that's
reassure you, we will
Yeah.
keep giving the sound levels. We'll do everything that we said that we will do. We fully intend to, keep everybody as happy as possible.
Okay. Well, I think so. Yeah. So either of the applicants, do you want to say anything more? Do you want to make a closing statement, which is your right to do so if you want?
Well, basically, this is something we've been planning for a couple of years with Hawkwind. It is a family festival. It is exactly what we said it is. It's not going to be some loud, brash thing. We're taking every measure possible to secure the village from sound and any, crime, whatever the things are out there. Now, these people are coming on site, they're staying on site. We're not allowing them to have loud music and bonfires and stuff, etc., etc. So it will be a very well policed venue and looked after. And saying if there is any issues, obviously my number, I think, has been the one that's been advertised for everybody to use and call. And we will, if there is any issues, obviously we'd deal with them straight away. There's no reason for us to have any issues, but if there was, and I say it's a closed site as well, so there'll be no one else coming on. There's security there. Everybody's wristbanded, so there'll be no, you can't just come off the Whitford Road and think you can come in. The gates will be closed, etc., and the security will be there to keep people at bay, and no one will be able to get into the site itself once they get in there. So, but to be honest with you, I don't think anybody would. The type of music it is for the older people. I don't think we're going to get 60-year-olds jumping over fences and gates. So, that's it. We're looking to put on a lovely event rather than something that's just there to make money and profit. It's really, a family thing.
We have to ensure our reputation as well, and we all live locally. The band live locally, so we don't intend to destroy that.
Okay, right. Well, thank you very much to everybody then. I think we're done. So we will now go to discussion. So I will do this officially. I'd just like to say thank you to the applicant and the interested parties. and subcommittee will now have a chat and will notify all parties of its decision within 5 working days. So that brings our meeting to an end. I'd like to thank everyone, including any members of the public watching online, for taking part. Can I just remind all those present that the sporting officer will confirm when the meeting is no longer being recorded or going live, and until then your comments